The Olympic Games in Paris were entertaining time for all of us, and we are also weird people that think about their Python code and find bugs at 1 a.m. If that defines you, then you should stick to that video because we are going to dive into a very popular library today named Pandas. And it is not loved and popular because it's named after a cute animal. It really eases the process of doing data analysis, and it brings with it very easy data structures like data frames and series. And so today we are going to dive into that library, and it's going to be cool to watch. So we have a lot of things to do today. We are going to download large data files named CSV files, which will include information like the medalists and also the entire schedule of the Olympics. So we will have some data to practice pandas on. And so we will start with the basics of this library and we will build on top of it. We will also dive into doing complex data analysis using this library. Everything you need to know about pandas is going to be included. So let's get into it. First things first, we are going to define the directory that we are working on and then install the pandas library. Pandas is the library that we said that it's going to do the data analysis for us. So it's going to be pip install pandas like the following. For me, it's already installed, so for you, it should probably take a few more seconds. And so now we are going to delete our terminal, and then it's a good time to bring in our PyCharm here and write the code that will be relevant for loading the CSV files that we talked about earlier on. CSV files are comma separated values files. These files usually include columns and rows, pretty much like a table when you manage in an SQL or an Excel file. You can have a CSV file that includes a few people, and you could have columns like name, age, gender, etc. So now here we are going to say import pandas as PD. This is the common way doing that. And then we are going to say data is equal to, and then we are already going to start using one of the methods of the pandas library to load CSV files as workable objects, as objects that will be comfortable to work with. So we will say pd.read underscore, and you can already see how many methods we have in the pandas library. You can load information from SQL, from an Excel file, from JSON, from HTML, but we are going to use CSV since this is the most popular one, and then we are going to refer to the CSV file that we want to load. Alright, so this will be the website where we will get our CSV files from. This is a website named Kaggle. It includes a lot of datasets, a lot of large data files about different things in the world. One of the things that it includes is information about the Olympic Games, and the beauty behind this, it's open to everyone. So if we will go here to the download button, as you can see, then it should be responsible downloading the CSV files, but if that's your first time in this website, it's going to ask for authorization. So right after you perform this, then you should be able to download, alright? And then it's going to download the zip file, which include the CSV files that we wish. Now I already moved the CSV files to my working directory, so it will be easily accessible for me, and you can see how many CSV files this zip file includes. The file that we are going to work with will be medals underscore total at the first stage, and so let's go ahead here and say medals underscore total dot CSV, and then we are going to start with printing the type of the data. So we will see what kind of object is right now available for us if we read from a CSV file, and then we are going to print the information itself. Alright, so now we are going to go to our terminal here, and we will say python run.py. This is the name of my Python file, and you can see how nice it looks. Okay, basically we have a kind of a table that prints in a style of columns and rows, and you can also see a few dots here and then the rest of the rows. Now this basically happens because a pandas is really designed to process data with even thousands of rows, and even seeing sometimes a 6 figures in that area is not something that is way far from reality, and that is why the data is being truncated when it starts to be more than 5 rows, and that's the behavior that happens here. Now you might be curious, what is the first line? Basically this is the type of the variable that we printed, and it is named a data frame. Data frame is always going to be as equivalent to a table for you, and it's going to include a lot of useful methods and a lot of attributes. It's going to deliver everything that you wish for, accessing a specific column and also a processing data, grouping your data. Everything is going to be available when you load your CSV files or any other sort of data to a data frame. Perfect. So after understanding a little bit about the basics and how to load a CSV file, then it's about time to see some basic operations that you can perform. So in order to prepare an environment where we can practice the basic operations, then we are going to delete these two lines from here. And also for convention reasons, I'm going to change the variable to df, because if you have only one main data frame that you work with, then it is a more common to call this a df for data frame, of course. Okay, so after doing this, then we are going to bring in our terminal and we are going to go ahead and use the Python interactive shell. And right after that, I'm going to go ahead and say from run import df like that. And obviously it's because run is the name of my Python file and I like to use the df to perform some operations. The nice thing with the interactive shell is you only have to type in the variable, send and enter, and then you'll see the data frame like the following. Now, one of the basic operations that you can perform, obviously, is to see the first x rows or the last x rows. So the methods to perform these will be df.head for printing the first 5 columns by default, and I'll zoom out a bit so you can see everything. And the same goes with df.tail. Tail will display the last 5 methods. If you are familiar with Linux, then these methods will be easy to remember for you. Now, I really like the terminal clean after I do some work, and since that, I'm going to execute import os and then os.system and run clear command like I'm in the terminal, because in Python shell there is no built-in command to cleaning your terminal. So when I run this, then it's going to clean everything for me. Okay, so now the next thing that we might be curious about is how to sort this data frame by a specific column. Maybe we'd like to see who won the most gold medals, and obviously it is sorted already by that way, but let's go ahead and see the country that won the most bronze medals, for example. So we can go ahead and use df.sort_values method and pass in a method, a column after specifying the by. By will be the column name that you have to go ahead and refer. So the column that we know that is available is named bronze medal like the following. Now there is also one more flag that we are going to show in just a second, but if I run this, then you can see that it is sorted by the country that won the least bronze medals, and obviously maybe we want to change this because it makes sense to see who won the most gold medals. So in order to do that, then we should pass in this ascending equals to false, and then the ordering will be descending. So here we go, we have these sorted by the most bronze medals, and obviously it applies for all the columns that exist in your data frames. You can also sort by the country code, and then it will sort probably from A to Z, and the descending will work as well. And it's also important to mention that most of the methods will return another data frame object that you can work with. This is a very critical point, because this means that you can go ahead and perform nested methods. So what that means, it means that maybe you'd like to see only the top 3 winners by bronze medal. So then I can launch another method on this expression and say head, and then see the top 5, but maybe I only like to see the first 2, so the head method accepts arguments as well. I can just go ahead and say 2 here, and there you go, I can see the top 2 bronze medal winners in the Olympic Games. Now say that we are trying to do a complex action with our data frame, and we like to have a reminder on the available columns and how they are exactly named. So for that you can use the info method, which really prints out nicely the information about the data frame that you work with. You can see that it has all the available columns, and also if there are any null objects, and you can see that for all of them these are non-null objects, and also their type. Now you can see that for the country code it displays a data type object, because that is just a general purpose object yet. if you decide to convert it to a string and perform some actions, then it's going to be a string. And we are going to see an example of that in just a bit. And you can see that for the rest of the columns, these are basically integers. So that is a very useful method here and there if you like to see full information on your data frames. Now, say that you like to have only a specific column in your data frame because you like to have a more condensed data frame to work with, then you can go ahead and use df and then refer to the desired column. And it's going to be very similar to the dictionary syntax in Python. So it will be something like df, and then inside the square brackets, inside a string, we can say country code like that, and you can see that we have the result in front of us. And maybe you are not satisfied with only having one column. Maybe you would like to perform only action with the country code and the total one metals. So we can, let's delete the screen first, and then we can use a syntax like this. Open up and close square brackets, open up and close them again, and then pass in a multiple columns, right? So we will start with country code and then a total like the following. And if we run this, then you can see that now we have a data frame with two columns where we have the country code and the total. And that is a very nice thing to have because you can go ahead and copy a data frame to a new data frame and only work with that. And the way that you do that is obviously by assigning this entire expression to a variable. And excuse me, it should be underscore here. And if I run this and then I access new df, then here we go, we have the result. Alright, so after learning some valuable actions in Pandas, then let's go ahead and learn how to find the data that you aim to have on your hand. And in this section, we will learn how to perform filtering on data frames so that you know to perform complex operations to just filter out the data that you want to work with. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, we are going to put in the screen 3 challenges and we are going to just solve them one by one so that we have some goals to start with. And the first one will be to find all the countries with only one gold medal. So let's go ahead and see how it is performed. First of all, we are going to create a new variable, and the output, again, as we know, will give a new data frame. So then we assign this to a new variable. So in here, I'm going to access to the data frame that we work with. And again, one of the common ways to filter data is to give the expression inside your square brackets. So in this way, it's really going to remind you logical operators when you learn Python basics. So now we are going to just give the column, so df, and then you can either access your attribute with the dot sign, or you can just refer it with the square brackets. I really prefer the square brackets, and I also recommend that because sometimes your column name could clash with the attributes that are available in Pandas. So that is why I only recommend using the square brackets when you access your columns. So now I can say gold medal. So after giving the column that we want to filter by, then the continuation is going to be with the expression that I like to give here. And then it's going to be equals 1. And this will result in to have all the rows that only has one gold medal. So if we go ahead and print the new df and we visit our terminal and we run our program, then you can see that now we see only the list of the countries that only earned one gold medal. So that is nice, and we really answered the first challenge here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and change this data frame name to a one gold medal to just have it documented here. Now let's go ahead and answer the first challenge. Now, like I said earlier on, it was weird to see that a column that really looks like a string with the country code is printed as object when we use the df.info method earlier on. Now we will see how to perform complex string operations in these objects that are meant to be strings. So we could go ahead and say only u is equal to df, and then again I'm going to refer to the column that I like to work with. It's going to be df again and square brackets, and I will say country code, and then I will go ahead and convert this into a string before performing the action that I like to perform, because if you remember, it is just given to me as a general object for just general purpose. So I'm going to use the .str, and then I'm going to start giving it expressions like we are familiar with the strings in Python. So if you remember, then let's just create a random string here. Then if I go ahead and see g dot, and you can see how many methods I have available, most of these are going to be available for you, if not all of them. So I can just go ahead and continue with giving regular expressions. So I can go ahead and copy the starts with, and I could paste this in. Of course, we move the dot sign. We have a one. We only have to have one here, and then I will just pass in here u like the following, and this should do the trick for us. So now if we go ahead and we print the only u, so now if we go to our terminal here and we clean everything and we run our program, then you can see that now we only print the countries that their a first letter is a u. So that is nice. That was really complex operation because it is not granted that the columns that you work with will be strings. You have to first do the conversion, and only after that you are allowed to access the methods. And like we see here, a perfect result for answering the second challenge. So the third thing that we should do here is to find all the countries with more than 25 medals. So I'm going to go back to our PyCharm, and I'm going to just call our variable more than, and then I'm just going to go ahead and use a very similar syntax. I'm going to go ahead and say df, and we know that we have the total column available to us. So I can just use this expression, and then I could give it more than 25 like that. Again, like a regular logical expression. This is pretty simple to the first challenge that we answered. Now if I go ahead and print this data frame, and we visit our terminal and we run the program, then you can see that we only have the list of countries with more than 25 medals. So these are some of the basic filter actions that you can go ahead and perform. Now you might be curious if you can combine these filters, these logical expression, and the answer is of course. Let's take the only u expression and try to combine it with more than 25 medals. So that probably we will have a USA and maybe another country that starts with U that won more than 25 medals. So now let's go ahead here and call this a variable a complex expression like that, and then let's say df, and again try to use the square bracket syntax, and now our expressions could be given inside a regular brackets, because now we'd like to take one expression and then do the AND operator and then give the second expression. So it's going to look something like this. I'm going to prepare two pairs of regular brackets, and then I'm going to pass in the AND operator, and then I'm simply going to copy and paste the operators that we wrote earlier on. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to paste this in here, and I'm going to grab this and I'm going to take this expression and paste this in like that. So it really looks long this time, but that's just one way that you can perform complex expression. So if we print this, and again we visit our terminal and we run our program, then you can see that like we said, only USA in that category. So that is how you perform complex filters with your data frames. In this section, we will see how Pandas could group your data into multiple data frames, and the only thing that you have to do is to give the column that you like to group by. So in order to show what the group by function does in Pandas, then we are going to change our CSV file to schedules.csv file. And if you remember, this was the file that displays all the events in the Olympic Games. So now if we go ahead and say print df.info and we visit our terminal and print this, then you can see that it has 16 columns. Now it could have been a great idea if we were to group our data frames by the day, because the day represents the exact date when each event is played or is about to be played. A reminder that I record this video 2 days before the finish of the Olympic Games, right? So now if we go back to our PyCharm here and we say df.group by, then the only thing that we have to pass in here would be the column name that we'd like to group by. And let's see what this information holds. So we are going to say grouped by day is equal to that one, and we are just going to print the grouped by and also the type of this variable that we came up with. So now if we clean everything and we run this, then you can see that at first we really don't receive anything that is visualizing a data frame or something in that kind, but you can see that the type is the data frame group by type, and this is a generic. And what that means, it means that whenever we are going to iterate over this object, then we will really see the desired results. So now I will go to PyCharm, and besides printing these, I will simply say for group name and also by the data frame in grouped by day, then let's go ahead and print the group name and also the data frame. And the results of these lines is going to be very interesting. So if we run our program now, then you can see that I really start to see the data frames. But the special thing here is that if I scroll up a bit, then you can see that for any data frame that you'll see here, at first I'll see the date, and only after that I'll see the actual data frame. So this makes a lot of sense because that is the value of grouping by a specific column. And you can see that if I scroll up a bit, then again there is this date and then the events that are played in that day. And as long as I keep scrolling and see that result, it really makes a lot of sense. So whenever we group by a specific column, then the best way to get the data out from it is to iterate over separated variables and just do whatever you'd like to do with both of these. Now, another amazing thing to know about the group by is the fact that you can group by more than one column. And sometimes it could be helpful for you because maybe you would like to have 2 groups per day where you like to see if a game is already played in that day or not played. So for that, then we could go ahead and change this to a list, and then I can add another column that I'd like to group by. And we saw earlier on that there is a column that is named status. The status column displays if the game has already been played or not. So maybe it's nice to even separate the data frames by the status of the played event. And in order to not really have too much a crowded display, then I'd only like to print the group name this time. We are not really going to use the df, so that you'll see how it's going to separate behind the scenes the data frames. And now if we run it, then you can see that now we see a group that is divided with the date of 24 July 2024 with the status of finished. But you can see that, for example, for the 29th, we see a cancel group and also finish group. So that is, again, one of the most powerful actions that you can take with Pandas. The fact that you can group by multiple columns is really valuable. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please show your support by hitting the like button if you enjoyed in this video. Also, consider subscribing if you'd like to see more tutorials in that style. And that will be it. See you in my next upload.